Okay, Rabbi, it's all yours.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. For those of you who were here last week, nice to have you back. Welcome to those who are not here. We are going to continue working our way through the Machzor in terms of getting prepared for Rosh Hashanah. Just reading the words, there's really little else that needs to be said other than the words that the sages gave us. But when we understand what it is that the sages gave us, so then we can better be prepared for what it is that we are trying to do as we prepare and stand in front of Hashem on Rosh Hashanah. So we discussed last week many of the themes as an introduction. We went through Shachas. What I'd like to do today is Musaf. Musaf is lengthy, it's long, it's complicated. We'll go through Musaf. There's much more to discuss when the Chazan repeats Musaf. There are various other poems, poetry, tefillos that are said. I'm not going to get to any of those today. I want to make sure we leave some things to do for future years. We'll have just what to talk about, just in case Mashiach doesn't come and we're still here together in Montreal. But what we'll cover today is Musaf. That's what I'd like to do. So everybody, I hope you have a Machzor with you. There's a card of Machzorim out in the back. So feel free to make sure that you have one. And I gave one sheet. It's a double-sided sheet that we'll just sort of use as a little bit of our structure as we go through. Okay, ready? Let us begin. So I am actually, what page? Yeah, we're not together. So page 327 in your red Birnbaum Machzor, that's what you have in front of you. I have grown up with the Art Scroll Machzor. If you have one of those, it's on page 448. Okay, let's do a word of introduction. There are, actually what sheets? Yeah, there are plenty of sheets in the back. If anybody needs, there are plenty more there. Okay, there are sheets for those coming in. There are sheets on the back and on the card, so you're welcome to make use of those. Okay, let's begin. Let us begin. Musaf starts and stops with a passage from the Gemara, a piece of Gemara from Masechus Rosh Hashanah, which I photocopied for you. It's a little small, I know, I apologize. We'll go through it together because this is literally, as I said, the beginning and the end of what it is that we are doing on Musaf. And to understand the way the Machzor is structured, one has to start with this Gemara. So let us do that. I have for those purists amongst you, on the top is just the Gemara, and then I have the art scroll on the bottom to help with the translation. The Gemara says as follows. Now, the Gemara is coming off of a Mishnah. The Mishnah had said on the top of this page that there are 4 times that the world is judged. We're familiar with Rosh Hashanah as a day of judgment, but the Mishnah actually said there were 4 times that the world is judged, and it's judged on different materials. Am I moving around too much?
No.
On Pesach, the Mishnah says the world is judged on tvua, on grain, on produce, and so every year Pesach time is a judgment. There's a judgment for the world on tvua. On Shavuos, the world is judged on peros ha'ilan, on fruits of the tree. On Sukkot, on water, and on Rosh Hashanah, mankind is judged. So we generally focus, as Rosh Hashanah time is coming, on the 4th of those, that mankind is judged. But the Mishnah actually said the world is judged on other things as well. Pesach for grain, Shavuos for fruit, and Sukkot for water. So the Gemara picks up on this idea and says as follows. Tanya, the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Akiva. We have a teaching from Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Rabbi Akiva, Mipnei Ma Amra Torah Heviu Omer B'Pesach. Why is it that the Torah says that there's a specific korban to be brought on Pesach? It's called the korban ha'omer. We're familiar with this because of Sviras ha'omer, which is the counting that we do from the time the omer is brought. But the omer is a very specific korban. It's a barley offering, and this barley offering is brought specifically on Pesach time. So the Gemara asks, why is this barley offering brought specifically on Pesach? It says the Gemara, well, for a very simple reason. Since Pesach is the time that the world is judged for produce, so Hashem says, bring before me an offering that represents what you're about to be judged on. Since you're going to be judged on produce, so bring an offering that's from that produce in order that you should have a good judgment. That says the Gemara. Then the Gemara says and continues, so why do we bring 2 loaves, shtei halechem on Shavuos? There's a special offering that's brought on Shavuos, and only on Shavuos we bring these 2 loaves. Why is that the offering of Shavuos? The Gemara says the same reason. Shavuos is the time that we're judged on peros ha'ilan, on fruit of the tree. Why specifically loaves and fruit of the tree is not for our discussion right now. But since you're being judged, bring something that relates to what you're being judged on in order that you should have a good judgment. Continues the Gemara. I'm just skipping around, not reading the whole thing inside, so we can keep moving into what we want to get focused on. Why do we pour water on Sukkos? You're familiar with the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, which is based on a special water libation. One time a year, there was a special process that they would pour water on the Mizbeach, on the altar of the Mizbeach. Why was Sukkos the time chosen for this water libation? Says the Gemara, because what are we judged on Sukkos? On water, on rain. Everything that's water related. So since we're being judged, the world is being judged on water, makes sense. The Torah says, bring me an offering of what you're being judged on. So when you're being judged on grain, bring grain. When you're being judged on fruits, bring your loaves. When you're judged on water, bring water. So finish if you remember the SATs. I don't know, did you take SATs here? Just in the States? Yeah. So the analogy would be, so when you're judged on yourself, bring yourself. That's what should follow. There's always that thing in SATs, they're like, 1 second, that doesn't fit. That's what should follow. All the other 3 times a year when we're judged, the Torah specifies, bring me an offering on what you're about to be judged on, because that's appropriate. Bring it to me, say something, say the right things, do the right things, you'll get yourself a good blessing. Rosh Hashanah, the 4th thing that's listed is us. Well, we don't really offer ourselves as sacrifices. You may have known, although I was in a shopping mall in Maine somewhere years ago, and I was stopped. I was the only Jewish person working in the shopping mall, and I was stopped by a non-Jew who was all excited. I studied the Bible, she said, and I'm reading the book of Leviticus and all the offerings, and now that you don't have your holy temple, like, where do you do your sacrifices? So I was so tempted to say, come here, I'll show you backyard. I'll take that back. So we don't bring ourselves, we don't do that. So what do we do on Rosh Hashanah? So the Gemara says as follows. What it follows inside this story is, this is a key part of our thing. If you're following me on the English, you see there's a little break where I had to cut and paste, like 6 lines up from there. Ve'imru lefanai, and say before me. I'm 7 lines up from that first break on the bottom half of the back. Ve'imru lefanai b'Rosh Hashanah malchios zichronos v'shofros, and say before me, recite before me, verses of kingship, of malchios, to be a melech, of shofar, of zichronos, of remembrance, and shofros. Say before me these 3 things: kingship, remembrance, zichronos, and shofros. Why? Malchios kedeshet hamluchuni aleichem. Say verses of kingship in order that you anoint and accept me as your king over yourself. Say those verses. Declare me to be a king so that you make me a king over yourself. Zichronos kedesh yala zichronechem lefanai letova. Say verses of remembrance so that your remembrance before me should be favorable. Uvema, and with what should you recite these verses? The shofar, with the shofar. So instead of bringing ourselves, which we literally do for everything else, if you want to have a good judgment on grain, bring grain. On water, bring water. You want to have a good judgment for you? How do you bring yourself on Rosh Hashanah? You declare Hashem king. How do you do that? You state verses that declare that, together with zichronos, together with remembrance, which we're going to get to, and together with the shofar, which is both saying verses of the shofar and actually blowing the shofar. One last line in the Gemara. The Gemara asks the question, why do we blow the shofar with a ram's horn? Why should that be the shofar of choice? The Gemara says, Hashem said, because something special happened with the ram's horn. That will remind me of Akedos Yitzchak ben Avraham, the binding of Isaac of Yitzchak, when the ram was taken instead of Yitzchak. Uma'ale ani aleichem, and I will consider it ki'ilu akadetem atzmachem lefanai, as if you bound yourself before me. When I remember what Yitzchak and Avram were willing to do, and you blow with that same ram's horn. Now, technically you can blow with almost any type of horn, would be fulfilling the mitzvah, but we ideally always try to get a ram's horn. If I will view you as if you yourself have placed yourself upon the altar, which is really the conclusion of the Gemara. How do you get yourself a good judgment? So you bring yourself. How do you bring yourself? Make Hashem your king, declare his remembrance with a shofar that will remind him of Avraham and Yitzchak, and it will be considered as if you yourself have literally done that and placed yourself on the altar. This Gemara is the start and stop of Musaf. You will see that literally this is our Musaf. Is this the Machzor choice that everybody uses generally?
Yeah.
So I'm not paid by Art Scroll, but you need to get yourself one. I'll tell you why. Because in the Birmingham, that's what I grew up with. That's what I'm kind of using. I'll give you the page numbers. But when you go through Musaf in a Birnbaum Machzor, so I'm sure you're all familiar with this experience. But this experience that I had this afternoon as I was preparing just to make sure the page numbers, it's like, oh my goodness, it's just page after page after page. There's no break, there's no pause. You don't know what in the world. It's hard to know, like, what section are we up to? It's just one. It's a lot. It's very hard to go through. Anyone have this experience before in Rosh Hashanah? It's a lot. So what I like to know, if you don't have the one that you're going to use, I like to pencil, get yourself a Machzor. The Art Scroll already breaks it down for you into different sections, which is so helpful in understanding. But that's what we're about to do. There are other Machzorim as well that do so. We're going to go through and break down what is like 7 or 8 consecutive pages, paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and break down what is taking place in all of these paragraphs to understand we're literally going to do what the Gemara tells us to do in order to offer ourselves on Rosh Hashanah. So let's begin. That is the brief introduction as to what we're about to do. I'm noticing the same problem as last week, that it's warm in here.
Yeah.
I have not learned since last week how to adjust it, but if anybody does, it would be a big help, I imagine, to...
It's cold.
No, it's cold? Am I the only one? Because I'm in the spotlight? Okay.
Perfect.
All right, never mind. We'll keep going. Okay, let's begin. So if you have your Birnbaum Machzor, so Musaf begins on page 327. 327, we begin with Musaf. We are not going to discuss the beginnings of Freundlich. We did that last week. The entire first page, 329, and the top of 331 until the end of the first paragraph on 331 is everything that we discussed last week, based on the standard Shemona Esrei. If you were not here, it's online, or it's going to be online soon, and you can watch that and fill in all the things that we discussed. Musaf has 2 components. The unique component of Rosh Hashanah, which we just discussed, the Gemara says is going to be 3 parts, Malchus, Zichronos, and Shofros, which we're going to get to. And then what Musaf really means. Musaf literally translates into, anybody? Some addition. What addition to what? So it's an additional korban, an additional sacrifice offering that was brought in the Beis HaMikdash on holidays, Shabbos and Yantiv. And so besides for the regular 3, Shachris, Mincha, Marav, that we daven, because there was an additional Yontiv offering, so we have an additional tefillah. So every Musaf has a paragraph which describes the specific offering that was brought, because that is actually what Musaf is. So our Rosh Hashanah Musaf begins with that, and it begins with the standard Atav v'chartanu mikol ha'amim. Now that standard, when I say every Shabbos, every Yontiv, has this additional introduction to the actual offering. Just to give you a sense where we are, on page 333, just flip back for 1 second. On the first paragraph is special for Shabbos, and then the second 2 paragraphs on page 333, U'b'chodesh hashvi'i, on the 7th month, and then U'min chasam v'niskayem, that actually describes the unique offering that was brought in the Beis HaMikdash on Rosh Hashanah. And we always, every Yontiv, we say specifically what was brought. That's the paragraph that describes that. If you're interested in the details, you could look there. We are now, from 331, going back a page, from Atav v'chartanu, until then, we're introducing that specific offering. What's unique about this day? And this is pretty standard for Yom Tovim. So let's just go through this a little bit, because there's some fascinating points here. Atav v'chartanu mikol ha'amim, we begin. You have chosen us from amongst all of the nations. Ahavta o son of the Ratzisa banu, you have loved us. You have found favor with us. V'romamtanu mikol ha'lashonos, and you have exalted us amongst all the other languages that are spoken, all the other nations. V'kidashtanu b'mitzvosecha, and sanctified us with your mitzvos, and you've given us this day. In the next paragraph, Yom HaZikaron Hazeh, the day of remembrance, as the Torah refers to it. In the next paragraph, which we're going to go through, we focused a lot last week on 2 ideas. Parts of Rosh Hashanah are universal, and parts of Rosh Hashanah are specific to us. So I'd like to pick up on that thread as we go through Musaf and bounce that idea around. what are we saying? To think about, and posing it as a question, as we read through it, what's the nature of this particular tefillah? Is it a universal tefillah? Is it about us? What is taking place? So let's read it through together. I won't say anything more than that, and let's read it. So we start by saying, well, where are we davening as we say this tefillah? So we're going to be, most of us I imagine will be here in Montreal. Some of us will have traveled between now and then somewhere else. But wherever we are, even if we're in the land of Israel, but this was said for 2,000 years by almost the entire Jewish world outside of the land of Israel. We start by saying we have been exiled. We are not in the place where we should be, because this is an introductory paragraph to recall what was supposed to be taking place in the Beit HaMikdash. And we're not doing it. We're just going to say words instead. So we have to introduce, almost to say to Hashem, we recognize this isn't right. Like we're offering you words for what should actually be taking place, and it's our fault. It's mipnei chata'enu. It's because of our sins. Galinu mi'artzeinu. We've been exiled from our land. V'nisrachaknu me'al adumaseinu, and have been distanced from our home. Ve'ein anachnu yicholim la'asos chovoseinu beveis b'chirasecha. We cannot fulfill our obligations where we should in the Beis HaBechira, in the house that you have chosen. V'bayis hagadol v'hakadosh shenikra shimcha alav, in the great and awesome home that you have called your name, because of the hand that has been sent, meaning that sent down to exile us, to destroy your own home. And it's our fault. And we recognize it's because of us. And then we have a tefillah, Yehi Ratzon. It's a beautiful tefillah. This is one of those beautiful tefillah. We say this tefillah every Yontiv. And it's one of the most moving, and it is really apropos on Rosh Hashanah. The words that we're going to say. Yiratzon milfanach. Now again, remember most of the focus we had last week when we were talking about Chakras, for those of you who were here, were our tefillahs focused on a universal day or on a specific Jewish day? Last week was almost exclusively universal. We didn't talk about ourselves. It was all about, we want to see your name everywhere. This tefillah, so pay attention to this tefillah. Let's go through. Yiratzon milfanach Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu, Melech Rachaman, a merciful King, shetashuvu srachem aleinu v'al mikdashka b'rachamecha harabim. Return and have mercy aleinu. It's on us and on your holy temple. V'tivneu meheiro skadil kevodo, rebuild it and exalt your kavod. Avinu malkeinu, using the phrase that we use so often, as we saw last week. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, Galei Kivod Malchuscha Aleinu Meheira. How would you translate that? Galei Kivod Malchuscha, reveal the honor of your kingdom, Aleinu, on us. We are your chariot. We are in exile, we suffer, and you suffer. And we daven, Yiratzon milfanecha, Galei kivon malchuscha aleinu, V'hofa v'hinasei aleinu le'einei kol chai. Look at that beautiful phrase. V'hofa v'hinasei aleinu, shine forth and be exalted on us le'einei kol chai, in everyone else's eyes. And it's playing off those two themes. We need to be exalted for you. Before whom? For everyone. The whole world should see a light shine on us, the Jewish people. Not for us, but it should be your majesty shining on us. Le'einei kol chai. V'korev pizureinu mibein hagoyim. Gather us up, all the exiled, the ones dispersed amongst all the nations. Unefutzaseinu kanes miarkesei oretz. To gather them all from all the corners of Yonah, you want to bring us back to Yerushalayim, where we could fulfill the Karbanos. And then that's the basic that aspect of that tefillah. So this tefillah that we introduced, the Karbanos, is not the universal. It combines it with, we want your presence to be revealed, shine forth on us in the presence of everyone. But it's recognizing we are not home. Bring us back, gather us together back home in Yerushalayim, so that the whole world sees we are your people. And that is how we begin Musaf, and then we actually say those two paragraphs on 333, which are the actual offerings of the day. Okay, that brings us now to a later. Now again, in your Machzor, page 333, there's no marking. I would highly recommend, if you have a Machzor at home that you're going to use, take a pencil. It's so worthwhile just to break up the tefillah to understand what it is that you're about to do. At this point, before you say Aleinu, we're about to begin the section known as Malchios, the section known as Kingship. On the back side, or the front side, whichever you want to look at it, let's just go over for a section of the structure. You may or may not be familiar already with this, but it's worth going over as we begin Musaf. So the structure is as follows. It's based on the Gemara which we read: Malchios, Zichronos, and Shofros. Each section, the section of Malchios, the section of Zichronos, the section of Shofros, has the exact same structure. And that structure is A, B, and C in section B on the little notes that I have here. Section A, it has a paragraph, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, of an introduction which defines the theme. So the section of Malchus is going to have a long paragraph that describes what does it mean, kingship, where do we see that, and what is it. It's then going to have 10 psukim that we're going to quote. As you're diving this on Rosh Hashanah, it gets a little tedious, one verse after another verse after another verse. So we're going to quote 10 verses which all follow the theme of the section that we're in. So in Malchus, we're going to have 10 verses describing kingship. In Zechronos, we're going to have 10 verses describing remembrance. And so too with Chauffeurs. The 10 verses are broken down as follows: 3 verses from the Torah itself, then 3 verses from Ksuvim, which all happen to come from Tehillim, then 3 verses from the Nevi'im, and then you're going to go back for the 10th verse, goes back to the Torah itself. So in each section, so in the section of kingship, you're going to have an introductory paragraph, 3 verses from the Torah, 3 verses from Tehillim, 3 verses from the Navi, and then you're going to go for verse number 10 back to a pasuk from the Torah itself, and then a concluding paragraph that's not so much a praise paragraph, but usually it's a yearning, as we'll see, for the fulfillment of what it is that we've just been saying, and then it concludes with a bracha, so that each section has a bracha in it which relates to what we just said. When we repeat the Chazan Shmona Esrei at the end of each section, we also then add the blowing of the shofar. In many Sephardic communities, they actually do that in the silent Shmona Esrei as well, where everybody finishes that section, they pause, then there's the shofar blowing, and then they go on. In Ashkenazi communities, generally, we did away with that. The silent Shmona Esrei is straight, and then we blow the shofar in the repetition at the end of each section. That is it. So let's go through the theme. So the theme of Malchus begins with Aleinu. Now Aleinu suffers from the cruel irony of what happens when something is so important and so beautiful and so fundamental to everything that we are that the sages said you have to say it every day. So because it was so important, they instituted that it happens every day. What happens because we say it every day? No one pays attention to it at all. It's 2 full paragraphs. I've seen Aleinu said in 3.2 seconds, which is amazing because there's so many words here. But we're so familiar with it. It's almost difficult. Aleinu, Remembrance, there's nothing in between. So when you get to your Shemona Esrei on Rosh Hashanah and you get to Aleinu, don't fall prey to the thought of, oh good, this I'm familiar with. No. This is so fundamental to the day that we made it every day. But this is the one day a year, do not do that. This is the one day a year, every word is a gem. Every word is a gem, so it's worth going through now because of what it is. Let's go through. This is an introduction to the concept called Malchios. Now again, I know that we're so familiar with it, the words roll off our tongue, but we often don't pay attention to what it is that we're saying. So we're going to do that. If you are familiar, great. But it's worth just focusing a little bit on some of the key phrases in this tefillah. It's upon us to praise the Master of all. Now, why is that? Ask a simple question. Why? Why is it upon us?
Because we're Joshua. He created us. Who else is going to do it?
Yes, because we're the only ones doing it. That's why. Because it's Rosh Hashanah. Because it's the day that Hashem created the world. It's the day that His Malchus, His kingship is out there. We are it. We're His only hope. for the whole world to recognize what's taking place. So it's aleinu. To feel that first word, aleinu. It is upon us to do this because who else? If we wouldn't, aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol. Laseis gedulo li'yotzer b'reishis, to give the greatness to the creator of all the universe. Shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzos. And we are so praised, we are so blessed that we're not like everybody else. You know, most of the time in school, that's the worst thing, you're different, right? The one who's different is the one who gets all the fingers pointed at them, and you're different. Being different is hard. And we wear it as a badge of honor. We've been different from the beginning of time. Avram was Me'aver HaYarden, he was on the other side. The whole world is on one side, and Avram alone stands, recognizing the concept of a God. And that has been the Jewish motto since Abraham. We are different. And the more that we try to blend in with everybody else, never works. Because we're different. Because aleinu l'shabech. Because we recognize the truth, but the rest of the world does not. And we are so thankful. We are so blessed to be different. We're special. We have to feel that and recognize that. You did not make us like everybody else. Our lot is not like theirs. In what? And we bow before the King of Kings. And we basically describing the exalted state. Hu Elokeinu ein od, there is nothing else. Efes ulaso, there's nothing besides him. As the pasuk says, V'yadati yom hashivos levacha. Let's focus on this pasuk, which is our first verse. As it says in the Torah, V'yadata hayom v'hashivos levacha. Those are two beautiful phrases. What's the difference? V'yadata hayom means you have to know. V'hashivos levacha. Take it to heart. What's the difference between knowing and taking it to heart? What's a piece of chocolate cake, right? I know I shouldn't eat this piece of chocolate cake, but it's so good. So, it's not good for me, but I know what I'm doing. Most of the things that we do that we know are not good for us, we know they're not good for us, but we haven't taken it to heart because we got other things that we want to do. So the reasons why we do whatever it is that we do. Sometimes we don't know. Some things that we do is because we don't actually know what we're supposed to be doing. So the Torah says, V'yadata hayom, you have to know, hashivos levacha. You also have to take it to heart. It's both the heart, the mind, all together. Ki Hashem hu Elokim, Hashemayim mima'al v'al ha'aretz mitachas, up in the heavens, down in the earth. And then the phrase to focus on, you could underline in box and star, ein od. Ein od. A Jew thinks, ein od. There is nothing else in this world other than the Ribono Shel Olam. This is the Ribono Shel Olam's world that He has made space in for us. V'yadata, I need to know that, intellectually understand it. Shivos levacha, I have to live it. Ein od. Ein od. I'm on the top of page 335. Ein od. So the first paragraph of Aleinu extols the praise of how blessed we are to recognize that you are Bashamayim mima'al v'ha'aretz mitachas, in the heavens above and the earth below. And then that leads into an al-kain. Therefore, now that I just said that first paragraph, now that I have clarity, now that I understand the position in life that I'm blessed to be in, al-kain nikavilacha. Now I have to put my hope. We discussed the word tikva tova l'darshecha. You should give us good hope. Last week we said in the beginning of the Shemona Esrei, because there's nothing better than that. We want good hope for your people. Al-kain nikavilacha. We hope for you, Hashem Elokeinu. Liros meheira v'tiferes uzecha, that we should see soon meheira v'tiferes uzecha, and the majesty of all of your glory. So now that I know that that's true, but we live in a paradox, because we can stand here on Rosh Hashanah all day long and say these words, but we all know something's going on. We look outside the world and we don't see it. It's a paradox that we live in. We could declare Melech, Melech, Melech all we want, and out there, outside of the four walls of Shul, it's not that way. So the yearning of the Jew feels that tension and can't help the al-kain. Therefore, I see it so clearly, I recognize it so clearly, all that I can do is then yearn Liros meheira v'tiferes uzecha. To see that. To see the splendor of your glory in the world. L'ha'avir gelulim min ha'aretz. To remove all the other idolatrous practices from the world. V'ha'elilim karosi karasun. They should be cut off. L'sakein olam b'malchus shakai. That is, that's the phrase. You got to underline l'sakein olam b'malchus shakai, which means literally to fix or perfect the world with your kingship. And that phrase recognizes that the world we're in right now is broken. You only yearn for a fixed world if the world you're living in right now is broken. And I don't need to tell you that the world is broken. The world is broken. It's 2,000 years of exile, 2,000 years that the Jews have not been where we're supposed to be, 2,000 years that God's presence is not what it's supposed to be, and the world is suffering because of that in myriads of ways that I don't need to describe to you. So a Jew's yearning, and again, because this is the yearning of Rosh Hashanah, it's so important we say it every day, but every day we just, we run through it. The yearning of a Jew, I spoke about that last Shabbos, the inner kvetch, what bothers us inside is l'sakein olam b'malchus shakai. That the world should be perfected because it's so broken. So much pain. The phrase tikkun olam, which has become a very big catchphrase in the world, but it's tikkun olam b'malchus shakai. Fixing the world with your kingship. Because when you're going to be in your place, everything else will fall into its place. Kol b'nei basar yikru b'shmecha. All people will call you. And again, here we shift back out of I'm so privileged, and what do I yearn for in my place of privilege? Kol b'nei basar yikru b'shmecha. Not just me. I want everybody to call out in your name. Hafnos eilecha kol rishei aretz. Who should turn towards you? Rishei aretz. The wicked. Even the wicked should see truth, should see your presence. Yakiru v'yedu kol yoshvei tevel. Again, they should know and recognize kol yoshvei tevel, all dwellers of the world. Ki l'cha tichra kol berach, every knee should bow to you. Tishava kol lashon should swear to you. As we prostrate ourselves before you, v'yikablu chulam es ol malchusecha, that the whole world, everybody should accept the yoke of your kingship, v'simloch aleim meirah l'amvoed, ki hamalchus shalchahi u'liyom and dunachvod, because kakosubas arsecha. And now we get to our verses. This is really the first of our 3 verses from the Torah. Kakosubas arsecha. Now we're going to have 3 consecutive. Hashem yimloch li'olam v'ed. V'nemar lo hibid oven b'Yakov. Hashem did not see any iniquity in Yaakov. Ended that pasuk Usruas Melech Bo. You have the idea of Melech there, and Vahi Bishur Melech Bis Asef Rosheam. That when there will be a king in Yeshurun when the leaders of the people are assembled in the tribes of Israel together. I want to just reference something I mentioned before once. I think it was on that women's opening night introducing Rivki. The 3rd verse that we say Vahi Bishur Melech. When will there be a king in Yeshurun, which is what we're yearning for today? There should be a king. Bis Asef Rosheim. When the people are gathered together. So the Medrash on this pasuk says a parable to a king who said to his servants, I want a palace built. And the servant said, no problem, we could build you a palace. He said, well, not so simple. I like to have a palace built on a boat, on a ship. They said, all right, that's a little different, but we could do that too. That's not a problem. We'll take a ship out to sea. We can build a palace on the ship. The king says, well, not quite. I want a palace built on a ship, but I want it built on 2 ships, where the foundations are not just on 1 ship, but on 2 separate ships. And they say, well, that doesn't work so well. Because ships and water, they move. So the king says, go figure it out. And the only solution to that is you have to have your ships anchored firmly to the ground, and they also have to be anchored firmly to each other. When will it be Vayi Bishurun Melech, says the Medrash? When will it be a king in Yeshurun? There's only one time. V'his Asef Rosheim. When all the people are gathered together. If the people are not together, they're not tied to each other. Different ships. You don't have to all be on the same ship. There are 12 tribes. 12 tribes represented 12 different flavors of children of Yaakov. And they were different for different reasons. They did different things. They had different traits, different personalities, different characteristics. But you got to be together. And when the ships are tied together, you can build me a palace. But if the ships aren't tied, then there's no king. There's no king. And that's the verse, one of the verses that we quote on Rosh Hashanah. In order, as we describe and yearn for Hashem to be a melech, it has to be specifically V'hisasef Rosh Hayom Yachad Shiftei Yisrael. Okay, now in your Machzor, the Barley Machzor, so I'm in the middle of page 335 in the third paragraph that begins with Remembrance. So if you see where I am, 3 lines down, Yachad Shiftei Yisrael, you see that?
Yeah.
So that's the end of the 3 verses from the Torah, and now we're going to quote 3 verses from Tehillim. So now we shift from the words of your holy writings, meaning from Tehillim, and we now quote 3 psukim from that also reference Hashem as the Melech, Il Hashem HaMelucha, the Nemar number 5, the second of the second set. Hashem Melech, Ke'us Lavesh Hashem Moses there, also referencing Hashem as the Melech, and the Nemar. Susha Roshechem, and there's a long quote of Yavo Melech HaKavod, Miza Melech HaKavod, all the way down to the third to the last line. Those are the 3 verses from Tehillim, and then 3 lines from the bottom you get Val Yidei Avadecha Hanavim Kasuv Lemor. Now you get 3 verses from the Navi. Kol Mar Hashem Melech Yisrael V'Goalo. Ani Rishon Yachron. I am the first, I am the last. Umi Baladai Ein Elokim. There is nobody besides me. The word Melech was there in the beginning of that pasuk. The Nemar, verse number 8, Valu Moshe Bahar Tzion Lishpotet Harisov, to judge. Vayisal Hashem HaMelucha. Again, you have the concept of a Melech. The Nemar, verse 9, Vayashem HaMelech El Kol HaAretz, the one that we're familiar with. Hashem will be a king. Vayomahu Yashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. Again, referencing Vayomahu. There'll be a day when he will be one and his name will be one. Meaning, right now it's not that way because we don't recognize Hashem's presence in the world. As best and as much as we try, it is still in exile. But by Yom Mahu, there'll be a day when it'll be Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. And then the last verse is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Now, we're familiar with that, but there's a problem with this, because there's one thing missing in the last verse that applies in all the other 9, and that is, there's no word Melech there. We're in the section called Malchios, in which the Gemara said, say the verses of kingship in order, Kadesh Tamluchuni Alechem, that you should make me your king. And the last pasuk doesn't have Melech. It just says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. But the answer, obviously, which I'm sure if you think about for a second, which is worth doing, is, there is no greater statement of Hashem being our king than when we declare Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. But that's what we're thinking about. We're declaring Hashem to be a king by recognizing Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And even though there's no word Melech in there, it's the only verse of the 10 that doesn't explicitly describe him as a king. But Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Okay, now from 337, the second paragraph, the next 2 paragraphs are then the conclusion of this first section, in which we're going to tie up the theme with our yearnings. In other words, we started with an introduction, which is in the first section, the introduction is Aleinu. Then we get to our verses, and then the yearning of the Jewish soul. And how does the yearning sound on Rosh Hashanah? Elokeinu, Elokei Avoseinu, Meloch al kol ha'ulam kulo b'chvodecha. And again, always with our theme. How would we translate that? Meloch, we're saying, please, reign over who? The whole world. We shift back out of our individualized sense, and now it's again, we want you to be king, emanating the light from our little shul, but everywhere, way beyond just the 4 walls of our shul. V'hinasei al kol ha'aretz b'karecha, in your glory, reveal and exalt yourself over everyone. V'hofa v'hadar gonuzecha, with your strength and your might. Al kol yoshvei tevel artzecha, on all those who dwell in the world. And then we borrow a phrase which we have in Shachris as well, which is one of my favorites, V'yeda kol pa'ul ki ato pa'alto, that everything formed should know that you were the one who did it. V'yavin kol yitzor, and everything fashioned should understand that you were the one who did it. V'yomar kol asher neshama be'apo, and every living being that has a neshama, a soul in its, a breath of life in its nostril should say, and I always feel like this should be just screamed by every Jew, and I'm sure the Chazan does a great job in his repetition of just screaming out this phrase. This is what we want everybody to say. This is our yearning, that the whole world should say this phrase, Hashem Elokei Yisrael Melech U'Malchuso B'Kol Mashallah. And again, that the 2 phrases, the Jewish God, Elokei Yisrael, should be Malchuso B'Kol Mashallah, should have his kingship recognized everywhere.
The whole idea of kingship is interesting, and in the first one, Malach, isn't that a tzivui form? So are we commanding God?
No, it's not a command, it's a yearning. Moloch, we want you to reign. I could be, I think grammatically like we would say something, but obviously I don't know that we could, it's not a command.
I know, but I'm just saying it's put in a grammatical form that makes it...
Yeah, that's the yearning, like yearn, like you do it. But not as a command, obviously. Then we conclude, the blessing on Malchus includes the Kedushas Hayom, the blessing on the entire day, the bracha of Mikadesh Yisrael V'yom HaZikaron, as the next paragraph concludes. The first couple lines are standard for Yantiv. Just to focus on one last line, Udvarcha Emes V'Kayam, the second to last line in that paragraph. Ki Ata Elokim Emes, you are the truthful God. Udvarcha Emes V'Kayam La'ad, and everything about you, your word, is true and is everlasting. And we conclude with the bracha, Melech al kol ha'aretz v'kadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron. You are the king of the whole world, who sanctifies today and the Jewish people and the Jewish people, the Yisrael and the Yom HaZikaron. Okay, that is the section of Malchios. Okay, so far so good? Let us move on. We get to the second section. So when you get to the section, and we conclude that bracha, so you're saying Yishmona Esrei, that's like a pause. Okay, I just did one of three. I concluded Malchios, I said my introduction, I said my yearning for kingship, and now I get to Zichronos. And what I'd like to focus on as we get through our introductory paragraphs, there are actually three introductory paragraphs to Zichronos on the bottom of page 337, 339. The top two paragraphs are all introductory paragraphs to the second section called Zichronos. There are three different themes which run through this section. So let's, as we read it through, so I'll pose it to you, and you'll tell me what you came up with. Possibly even four, but in my mind there were three different themes to this idea. So let's read it through, and you'll tell me what you came up with. Ata zocher ma'asei olam. You remember the works of all deeds done in the universe. Upoked kol yitzurei kedem. And you recall all creatures that were formed way back. So you remember, you recall. Lefanecha niglu kol ta'alumos. Before you, all hidden things are revealed. The hamo nistaros shimi gracious, and the multitude of mysteries since the beginning of creation. Okay, let's start there. What are the two themes so far? Creation. What do you say? You remember everything. That's the first phrase. Ata zocher ma'asei olam. And then there's a second theme. Nothing is hidden from you. Now, those are two separate ideas. They're related, obviously, but they're separate. And the first line, we've already touched on both of them. Two separate ideas. You remember everything, which means anything that ever happened, let's say that, so I don't know everything that happens. Think about yourself for a second. Like, I don't know everything that goes on with my kids. But even the things that I know, I don't necessarily remember. So it would be one thing for a parent to at least be able to say to their kids, whatever I know about, I'm going to remember forever. So they can say, fine, but you and I both know that you don't know everything. So what you know about, I'll have to deal with. So the first thing we say to Hashem is, Ata zocher hakol. Whatever, you know it all. And then, but it's not just like a regular parent who may not necessarily know it all, but lefanecha niglu kol ta'alumos. Everything that is hidden is revealed before you. So that not just do you know everything, but that you remember everything. And those are the two things that we introduce right away in the beginning. Ein shikcha lefnei chisecha vodecha. There is no forgetfulness before your throne. Ve'ein nistar mineged einecha. Nor is there anything hidden again before your eyes. Ata zocher kol hamnifal v'gam kol hayitzur lo nikchad mimeka, we say. You remember everything that was ever done, and not a single creature is hidden from you. Now again, as we go through this, we could read through line by line. It's the same basic themes. This is what we spoke about last week when we talked about the awe, the fear. On the one hand, there's the joy of Malchus, declaring a king. And then we shift into the second paragraph, which is, you remember it all, and there is nothing hidden. Like really nothing. Not from anyone or anything, and it's always before you, never forgotten. The end of this paragraph, let's just go to the end of the paragraph. Zeh hayom tchilos ma'asecha. This is the day, the anniversary, the start of your handiwork, the day the world was created. Now, it's actually not the day the world was created. What really is Rosh Hashanah representative? What happened on Rosh Hashanah, historically speaking? Adam was created. The world was created on Chauffeur Elul, which was probably, what, yesterday? Today?
Now it's yesterday.
Now it's yesterday. Chauffeur Elul, and on Rosh Hashanah was the day that Adam was created, which is really the significance of creation. The creation was not that there should be trees and flowers and birds, which are all beautiful. The purpose of creation was that there should be us. We are the purpose of all of creation, and therefore Rosh Hashanah recognizes the day that the world was created. When we'll find numerous times that the Machzor will reference the world was created. The world was not created on Rosh Hashanah. It's a machlokes in the Gemara if it was in Tishrei or even in Nisan, Pesach time. But all of these references are going according to the opinion that it was really in Tishrei. But nobody holds the world was created in Tishrei. Adam was created on Rosh Hashanah, which is the significance of why the world was created.
But to say Hayom Harat Olam.
Yes, that's right. There are several references, but it's a reference really. The birthday of the world is the purpose of why you created the world, and the purpose of why you created the world was, well, for example, let's say you built a shul, just as an example. So you built a shul, and it was completed on a certain day, and then let's say a couple of days later you had the first minyan. So if you wanted to celebrate every year the anniversary, so do you celebrate the anniversary of when the last brick was put on but nobody was in it, or you celebrate first time we used it for the purpose of what it was here for? This is when we started using the shul. So when man was created, now the world is ready to go. So the first paragraph describes the ideas of A, you remember everything, and that everything is revealed in front of you. And then the very last line that we just said, and I was in the middle of, it's a decree and a judgment day. So what happens on the day that the world was created, when man was created? So there's a reckoning of, okay, how is man doing? So he, capital H, who never forgets anything, who everything is revealed before him, on the day of the anniversary that man was put on this earth to fulfill his mission, also becomes a judgment day. And this is what we spoke about last week, all about the tension that we have as people, simple human beings going through the day. On the one hand is, Aleinu l'shabeach, we are here, tall, proud, loud, you are the king. And then the next paragraph is that totally exposed feeling of, you know everything, you remember everything, you judge me today on that, there's no forgetfulness, and it's all revealed. The next paragraph says, Al Hamadinos Bo Ye'amer. So not only are we specific human beings judged, but countries it's determined for them on today, Ezo Lacherev, Ezo L'Shalom. Which ones will be for the sword, for war? Which ones will be L'Shalom, for peace? Ezo L'Ra'av, Ezo L'Sofa. Which one will have plenty? Which one will have famine? Uvrios Bo Yipakedu. And then we describe the judgment for individual people. La'askiram L'Chaim V'Lamaves. They should be recalled either for life or Rachmana Litzlan, for death. Milo nifkad kahayom hazeh. Who is not recalled? Who is not judged on this day? Again, I'm just focusing on the emotion of the first section. Malchios is one of pride, of excitement, kingship. I am of the proud few to do so. And then the next paragraph is one of such humility, of who's not remembered on a day like this. And then on the article that I wrote, which you'll get on Rosh Hashanah, this is probably my personal favorite line, and I've said it a couple times. Ki zecher kol hayitzur lefanecha ba, because the remembrance of everything comes before you. Ma'aseh ish ufkudaso, not just the deeds of man, but also his pekida, his mission. The context of our deeds, it's not just a deed alone. A deed alone is nothing. What's the context? What was the mission? What was the person capable of doing? One person can pick up a phone and call somebody who's sick and wish him well. And for one person, that was a giant act. And for another person, well, you picked up the phone, you should have gone over and visited him. it's all based on what's the relationship, where's the person holding in life. For one person, one thing might be amazing, for another person was falling short. Who can judge whether or not any act that we did exceeded expectations or fell short of them? There's only one person who can judge that. That's not for us to judge. We never can judge that. But on Rosh Hashanah we say, not only are our actions do they come before you, but our pkida, our mission. What it is that we were potentially capable of doing, and what it is that we actually did. Alilos mitzadei gover, the accomplishments of man's activities. Machshavos adam v'tachbumusav. All of man's thoughts and schemes. We have plans and ideas and this and that, and they're all exposed. All of that is there before you to see and to judge. Ashrei shelo yishkachecha. So how do we conclude this paragraph? It's the most humbling of paragraphs. It's frightening. So praiseworthy is the man who doesn't forget you. Because who lives his life knowing this is what's coming. It happens every year. It happens at the end of 120. Ashrei shelo yishkachecha uven adam yisametz bach. And the person will take strength in you. Ki darshecha li'olam lo yikashelu. Because those who are doresh you, those who seek you will never stumble, and will never those who take refuge in you will never be humiliated. So that's the hope of the Jew. Yeah, remember God, and you'll be all right. But it is a humbling paragraph, and then there's a third paragraph. Still yet a third paragraph as far as before we get into our verses. Ki zecher kol ha'masim lefanecha. All of actions come before you. Your doresh ma'aseh kulam, and you look into all of them. We begin then the verses by referencing Noach, and who was remembered, because the Torah uses the language of Vayiskor Elokim es Noach, so that's one of the first of the three psukim, towards the middle of the paragraph, and Vayiskor Elokim es Briso, Hashem remembered his covenant, and then the third verse to conclude the paragraph is Zachartes Brisi Yaakov, Avos Brisi Yitzchak. And then continuing along, we have the three psukim from Tehillim, which all reference the idea of Zecher or Zikaron. And then the final three psukim, two of which are well-known songs, very beautiful psukim. Zacharti lo chesed nu'urayich. I am where's at the end of, just find it in towards the top of page 341. Zacharti lo chesed nu'urayich, ahavas kelulosayich. We recall, Hashem recalls from the words of the Navi, the love that the Jewish people had when we left Mitzrayim to follow him into a barren desert with no food, without provisions. Where were we going? So we specifically use that on Rosh Hashanah as well. Lech tech acharai b'midbar be'eretz lo zerua, and we conclude haben yakir li Ephraim ki yeled sha'ashuim. You are my favorite son, my beloved child. As I speak of him, I remember him fondly. My heart yearns for him. I'm literally yearning for my son Ephraim, which is what we do. And then we conclude with a paragraph, which is a lengthy paragraph, to remind yourself of the Akedah, which we reference in this paragraph. And we focus on one phrase and we'll go on to the next paragraph. The Kavash Rachamav La'asos Ritzoncha B'Levav Shalem. Remember Abraham, who suppressed his mercy for his son to fulfill your desire, your Ratzon. So in the same way as what it takes for a father to suppress his mercy, we therefore say, Kein yichbeshu rachamecha as kascha. So too, God, we pray, in his merit, suppress your anger in your mercy for us, and judge us favorably in the same way that Avram had to do so. So we ask you to be able to do the same thing for us as well. We conclude Zocher Abres. Okay, one last paragraph. It's getting late, and then I will let you all go. Shofros. So Shofros has two components to it, as we will go through, as we will be focused on. And the first one is the first words on the bottom paragraph on page 341, which begins Atan Niglesa va'anan kivodecha. Now Niglesa means you've become revealed. So when we conclude this third idea of Malchios Achronos, we declare Hashem our King. We declare that He is the King who knows and is aware of everything and never forgets everything and therefore judges everything. And then we say you revealed yourself in the world through the shofar. And what we describe is as Klal Yisrael stood at Har Sinai, when the mass revelation, the only mass revelation that ever took place in the history of the world, we're the only people who even claim that God revealed himself to the masses of the people. Every other religion in the world, you can't possibly make that, you can't make that up. It's impossible. Like, which people would you convince that we were there if they weren't there? Every other religion will claim it got started in a small group of people, either in an individual or just a handful. But we claim everybody was there. And you revealed yourself then, and we reference that on Rosh Hashanah, because since on Rosh Hashanah we are declaring Hashem to be the king, how do we know that? Because our Zaydas, they were there. And they all saw, and it went down from generation to generation to generation, and that was revealed with the sound of the shofar. So we reference all of those psukim of what it was like on Har Sinai, at Har Sinai, through the sound of your shofar, and that is what you will find in this bottom paragraph on page 341, and then all of the psukim that we quote on the top of page 343, the 3 psukim from the Torah, all reference that specific episode. Vayikolosu vrakim va'anan kaved al har. There was thunder and lightning and a thick cloud. The kol shofar chazak ma'od, and the sound of the shofar was very, very strong. Vayacharad kol ha'am, and the people trembled because of that. And the 3 verses, all of them have to do with the shofar from Har Sinai. We then quote 3 psukim from Tehillim. All 3 of the psukim in Tehillim have a specific focus on praising Hashem through the shofar. So again, the first paragraph deals with the revelation of Hashem through the shofar. The second paragraph from Tehillim, quote, using the shofar as a form of praise, like trumpeting in the king. And then the last paragraph, which I want to draw your attention to, which does not have a paragraph break in this particular Machzor, but it begins Al Yedei Avadecha. So from the bottom of the page on page 343, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8 lines up from the bottom. Al Yedei Avadecha HaNevi'im. We now have a third idea, which is the ingathering of the exiles through the shofar. That the shofar is going to represent a third idea. Shofar represents kingship, how Hashem revealed himself through the shofar. It represents praising Hashem through the shofar. And then it represents the final herald of the redemption of the Geula will be specifically through that shofar. And that is that the yearning of the concluding paragraph, which begins on the bottom of the very last line on page 343, Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu, after all 10 verses have been said, then we say, Tekah b'shofar gadol l'cheiroseinu, blow that big, amazing, large shofar l'cheiroseinu to sound our freedom, v'sanes l'kabetz guluyoseinu, to gather in all of our exiles, v'karev pizureinu, from those of us dispersed from amongst all the nations, u'nefutzoseinu kanes, to gather us together, V'havienu l'tzion yirchol b'rinah, to bring us to Yerushalayim with joy, and to Tzion, and v'shamnas elefanechos karbonos, and we'll do the karbonos there. So we conclude shofaros with the yearning. It starts with, you revealed yourself with it, we praise you with it, and then we yearn to hear that shofar that will then bring us back, that sound of the shofar that we will hear. You know, when I was growing up, I remember always saying that there'll be a shofar that will blow, that will be the sign that Mashiach is coming. And I remember still, to this day, being in 4th grade, having the question. I don't remember if I actually asked my teacher the question, but like, how will we know when Mashiach is here? It's like, how I was living in a little town in New Jersey, so like, how am I going to find out like when he's here? And it's so interesting that in the 20-some-odd years since then, that's not a question that any kid would ever ask again. How would we know information? Like, what do you mean? It's on Facebook, it's going to be all over the world. Like, when it happens, we'll know about it. Don't worry about it. It's amazing, like, we've changed the way, like, what would be a real question back a couple decades ago, no longer a question, and it's always been represented as the shofar gadol. There will be a sound of a shofar that we will hear that will usher in that time. So those are the 3. That's Musaf. Musaf are those 3 sections: Malchus, We declare Hashem our King. Zechronos, we recognize Him as He who knows, remembers, everything is revealed, and therefore judges. And then the verses of Shofros, which is, you revealed yourself through the shofar, we praise you through the shofar, and we yearn to hear that shofar that will eventually take us home. And that is again, Amos. I will leave you with one last thought, which is not from the Machzor, but again just sums up what to me has been is always, and as I mentioned last week, the complexity of the day, the different things and themes and feelings. The Navi Nehemiah describes bringing the Jewish people back from the exile. They were in Bavel. They were exiled after the first destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. They experienced the Purim story, and then Ezra and Nehemiah bring the Jews back. And the Navi describes it was a small group of 40-some-odd thousand that came. Most of the Jews stayed back in Bavel, and those who came were not the leaders, not the most religious, and they tried to build themselves a new life in Eretz Yisrael. At the very end of Sefer Nehemiah, the Navi describes how they asked him, "Vayomru le'Ezra Sofer lahaviyah Sefer Torah Moshe, bring forth the Torah and to read for us." And the Torah describes exactly when this was taking place. V'yom echad l'chodesh hashvi'i, on the first day of the 7th month, which is Tishrei, it's Rosh Hashanah. So the Navi is describing, it's Rosh Hashanah, we're back in Eretz Yisrael, and they've asked their leader Ezra to read from the Sefer Torah. Vayiftach Ezra ha-Sefer le'inei kol ha'am, and Ezra opens up the Sefer, and he reads before all the people. Vayivarech Ezra Hashem Elokim, and he praises and blesses Hashem. Vayishtachu l'Hashem ha'paimar, so the people bow down. Vayikru b'Sefer b'Torah Elokim, he reads, and then the Navi says, he said, Ki kadosh hayom l'Hashem Elokechem, today is a holy day to Hashem. Al tisablu ve'al tivchu. Don't be mournful, don't be an avel, and don't cry. Ki bochim kol ha'am b'shamam es divrei Torah, because the people were crying. Who do you tell not to cry? If somebody was crying. Who do you tell not to be mournful? Who's mourning? The Navi says because they were all mourning. Why were they mourning? Why are they crying? Because they're coming back from exile, coming back from Galus. They're back in Eretz Yisrael, and they're listening to the words of the Torah that Ezra is reading. And as the Mefarshim learn, that they haven't been fulfilling correctly. They're crying. Can you imagine a more picture-perfect, textbook day of tshuva? It's Rosh Hashanah, and the people are crying. Back in Eretz Yisrael for the first time in 70 years. People who remember stories from their fathers and grandfathers about what it was like to have a Beis Hamikdash. And they've returned, they haven't yet had a chance to rebuild, but they're back. And they're crying. You know what it takes to get a Jew to cry? They're crying. Can you imagine how beautiful that is? And Nehemiah says to them, not today. No tears. No tears, no mourning. Al tisablu ve'al tivchu. Vayomer lam luchu ichu mashmonim ushetu mamtakim. Go home and eat fatty foods. Eat your sweets. Look at shmak meal. V'shulchu manot le'ein nachono. Make sure those who don't have, go provide for them. Ki kadosh hayom la'adonenu. Today is a holy day to Hashem. Al teatzvu, no sadness. No sadness today. Ki chedvas Hashem hi ma'uzchem. Because the enjoyment of Hashem, chedvas Hashem, is your strength today. Your strength today is the enjoyment of Hashem. This is Rosh Hashanah. The people are crying. It's beautiful. It's tshuva. In the best possible way. Nehemiah says, not today. Not today. Today's Rosh Hashanah. Today, Ata Melech, Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloch Ulam Led. Today is Aleinu L'Shabeach. Today is our day to stand tall, proud. You are the king. And then I'm humbled by what that means. You remember everything, you know everything, you recall everything, you judge. But there's no sadness today. There's no crying on Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur, you can cry all day long. You should. Seres Meitshuva, from Tzom Gedalia, day 3 till day 10, we cry. Not on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we're humbled by the magnitude of what we're doing. That we're declaring Hashem to be a king. That's a big deal. And when we see it clearly, Aleinu l'shabeach l'sakeinu lom b'malchus shakai, and it's just us, the privilege we have. But that's the emotion of the day. That's the difficulty of it. That's why we have a meal. As the Nehemiah says to the people who are crying, go home and eat. Go celebrate. Make sure everybody has what to eat. Chedvas Hashem hi mu'uschem. You know what your strength is today? Chedvas Hashem. You rejoice in Hashem. That's your strength today. Yom Kippur, you'll cry. But today you rejoice. It's a hard thing to do. It is. I repeat what I started with last week. It is hard day. Because we're going to say we're going to sign a Tokef, we're going to say who's going to live and who's going to die, because that's also part of it. But it's also about, it's a glorious day. It's a glorious day to say Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloch Yolam Va'ed. And we should be zecher, we should merit to be successful in really recognizing and living through what is the most difficult of balancing, of understanding what we're doing. Ki chedvas Hashem hi mu'uschem. Our strength is rejoicing in Hashem. And we should be able to do so and to declare Him King, strong, proud, loud and clear. That's what we're doing as we are humbled and frightened as we do it. And Hatzlacha Rabbah in being able to be able to do so. A good Gebet Shir to everybody. Wish you all a good Yantiv. And we'll get together with Hashem, what is it, next Wednesday, which is after the fast. We'll give a little Nashir, and we'll go through a little bit of the Yom Kippur Machzor to get ready for Yom Kippur. Good Yantiv.